The question that stopped the galaxy. The royal hall of the Varelian Empire shimmered like a sea of stars. Light poured down from crystal ceilings, and thousands of alien nobles filled the chamber with soft whispers. In the center stood a single human, Dr. Ethan Cole, dressed in a plain gray uniform, his calm eyes scanning faces that looked nothing like his own. He had been invited to the grand symposium to represent humanity, a species many still called Deathworlders. Across from him sat Princess Celira, the heir to the Varelian throne. Her skin glowed faintly blue under the starlight. Her eyes reflected galaxies, and her voice, calm yet curious, carried through the air. She had studied countless species in her lifetime, but humans fascinated her in a way she couldn't explain. They were fragile, emotional, unpredictable, yet somehow unstoppable. Ethan stood before a massive holographic display showing human DNA. The crowd watched silently, some with interest, others with visible disgust. The Varelians were elegant, logical, and disciplined. They saw emotion as weakness to them. Love and passion were primitive instincts still. The princess leaned forward, her eyes sharp, her tone playful but serious. "Human," she said. "You speak of your biology, your evolution, your instincts, but tell me something I have not read in your archives." Her words silenced the chamber. "How do your kind reproduce?" The room froze, even the translator drones hesitated. A few nobles gasped, some covered their faces with shimmering hands, and one old ambassador coughed in shock. Reproduction was a sacred and clinical topic among the Varelians, never discussed in public, but the princess, proud and curious, kept her gaze locked on him. Ethan blinked, his lips twitching in surprise. For a moment he thought she was joking, but her eyes burned with genuine curiosity. He cleared his throat. "Well, it's a bit complicated," he said slowly. The translator echoed his voice across the chamber. "Humans reproduce through connection," the aliens murmured, their head ridges flaring in confusion. The princess tilted her head. "Connection?" she repeated. "Yes," Ethan continued. "We don't just merge genetics. We share emotion. We bond through love, trust, and choice." His calm voice filled the hall. "For humans, reproduction is not only about creating life. It's about connection between two hearts." The princess's glow deepened into a soft pink hue, a Varelian sign of embarrassment. Yet she didn't look away. Her curiosity only grew stronger. "So," she said softly, "you feel when you create life?" Ethan smiled gently. "We feel everything," he said. "Joy, fear, hope, pain. It's messy, but it's beautiful." He paused, looking around the silent hall. "That's why humans protect their families fiercely, because every life begins with emotion, not calculation," the nobles whispered among themselves. Words like illogical, dangerous, sentimental echoed around the room, but the princess remained silent, her cheeks glowing brighter. She stared at the human like she had discovered something forbidden. Her father, the emperor, shifted on his throne, his voice cold. "Princess Celira, this line of questioning is inappropriate," he warned. But she ignored him. "Dr. Cole," she said softly, "in your species, does affection come before reproduction?" Ethan looked at her, slightly amused. "Usually, yes," he said. "We fall in love first." The moment the word love echoed through the hall, the translators hesitated again, as if the word itself didn't belong in their vocabulary. "Love," Celira whispered the word, testing its sound, her eyes softened. "We do not have that word in Varelian tongue," she said. "We have efficiency, we have selection, but not love." Her voice trembled slightly. Ethan nodded slowly. "Then perhaps that's what makes us human," he said quietly. The hall remained silent. No one dared to breathe. The princess's glow was now bright enough to reflect in the polished floor. Her advisors whispered urgently, warning her to stop, but she didn't. She was captivated. "You risk chaos with such emotions," one elder snapped. "Emotions lead to war, to destruction." Ethan turned to him calmly. "Maybe," he said, "but they also lead to hope, and without hope, your stars will grow cold." The hall erupted into murmurs again, half of the aliens horrified, the other half intrigued. The emperor raised his hand, silencing them all. "Enough," he commanded. "Human, your philosophies are irrelevant here." But Celira didn't stop staring at him, her voice barely a whisper now. "Dr. Ethan," she said, "you speak as if your kind feels everything so deeply." Ethan looked at her and smiled faintly. "We do, Your Highness," he said. "It's both our curse and our gift." That night, long after the symposium ended, Princess Sailira sat alone in her chambers, her reflection shimmering in the mirror of her crystalline walls. She touched her own face, still faintly glowing pink, and whispered to herself, "Love?" The word felt strange yet beautiful on her tongue. Outside her window, the human ship prepared for departure. And though she tried to focus on her royal duties, her mind refused to forget the calm, gentle smile of the human who spoke of emotions as if they were the universe itself. And for the first time in her royal life, Princess Sailira felt her heart beat faster, a rhythm foreign to her kind, but deeply human, a feeling she couldn't name, yet one that made her a study of hearts. The royal palace floated above the gas clouds of Virelia Prime, its towers glowing like shards of starlight. For days after the symposium, whispers echoed through every corridor. The princess had blushed, they said. The Death Worlder made her blush. Servants avoided her gaze. Advisors walked carefully around her, yet Princess Sailira kept her composure, her regal calm hiding the storm inside her mind. She couldn't stop thinking about the human's words: love, trust, connection. Those ideas pulsed in her thoughts like a strange melody. She replayed every sentence Ethan had said, his calm voice, his gentle eyes, the way he described emotions as if they were sacred forces. Her kind viewed reproduction as duty, efficient and controlled, yet humans turned it into something meaningful. On the third day, she broke protocol. She summoned Dr. Ethan Cole to her private observatory, a place reserved for royal meditation. The guards hesitated, but her command was law when Ethan entered. He found her standing before a massive window overlooking the planet's storming atmosphere. "Your Highness," he greeted respectfully, bowing slightly. She turned to him, her glow faintly pink again. "Doctor," she said softly, "I wish to continue our discussion." Ethan raised a brow. "On biology?" he asked. She hesitated. "On humanity," she replied. She led him to a silver platform surrounded by holographic projectors. "Show me what you call love," she said. Ethan blinked, surprised. "That's not something I can simply show," he said. "It's felt," she frowned. "You said it can be seen through actions." "Through choices," she insisted, "then demonstrate it." He sighed lightly, but then activated a hologram of Earth. Images filled the room. Oceans crashing against cliffs, children laughing, couples holding hands under rain, old people embracing under sunsets. Sailira's eyes widened, her glow flickering in awe. "So much chaos," she whispered. "Yet so much warmth." Ethan smiled softly. "That's love," he said. "It's what keeps us moving forward." She touched the hologram, her fingers passing through a projected image of two humans hugging. "Your species bonds through emotion," she said. "Ours through energy." She paused, "but emotion looks stronger." Her voice trembled slightly, as if she was realizing something forbidden. She turned to him. "When you spoke before the council, you said every human life begins with connection," she said. "Does that mean every child carries a part of love?" Ethan nodded gently. "Ideally, yes," he said. "Even if the world is harsh, love gives meaning to pain." For a long moment, the princess said nothing. The hum of the palace engines filled the silence. Then she smiled faintly, the first true smile she had ever shown. "Your kind is strange, Doctor," she said, "but strangely beautiful." Ethan chuckled quietly. "I've been called worse," he replied. She laughed, a soft, melodic sound that made his chest tighten for an instant. She wasn't a royal figure of a galactic empire. She was just a curious soul trying to understand something new. She asked more questions, not about anatomy, but about feelings. "Do humans ever fear love?" she asked. "All the time," Ethan said. "It can hurt. It can break you, but it's worth it." She looked down. "Our kind avoids pain," she said. "Maybe that's why we never felt this warmth." When the session ended, Sailira dismissed him politely, but as he left, she found herself watching his silhouette fade into the corridor. Her heart, or whatever her species had in its place, felt heavy, like something inside her was awakening. That night she returned to her study alone. She opened her royal logbook, something only the emperor was allowed to read, and wrote secretly under a private encryption. "Observation. Human emotions are not weakness. They are power. They are dangerous because they change everything they touch." She paused, her fingers hovering over the console before adding one last line, "And I fear they are changing me too." In the silence of her chamber, her reflection shimmered softly, her glowing skin still pink from an emotion she didn't understand. Outside, lightning storms danced across the gas giant below, as if the universe itself was echoing her confusion, and far in the distance on his small ship, Dr. Ethan Cole couldn't sleep either. He kept remembering her laughter, her voice, her glow that brightened when she smiled. He told himself it was just diplomatic, just cultural exchange, but deep down he knew something had begun between them, something no science could measure, something that even the galaxy might soon notice. In the heart of the Verelian Empire, an alien princess and a human scientist were unknowingly writing the first chapter of a new legend, one born not of war or conquest, but of curiosity, warmth, and the power of a single question that stopped the galaxy and started something far greater, the lesson of touch. The next morning, the palace lights dimmed under a rare solar eclipse. The Verelian capital was quiet, but in the royal laboratory, a new kind of tension buzzed in the air. Princess Celira stood beside Dr. Ethan Cole, surrounded by glowing crystal consoles and levitating data spheres. Their goal was simple, to study how human and Verelian energy interacted. But beneath the surface, both of them knew this was no ordinary experiment. Celira adjusted the calibration orb with trembling hands, pretending her composure was intact. "You may begin the scan," she said. Ethan nodded, attaching a sensor to his wrist. "You're shaking," he noted softly. Her glow flickered pink. "It's cold," she said too quickly. He smiled slightly. "It's not cold here, Your Highness," he replied. Her eyes flicked toward him, narrowing just a bit. "Then perhaps I'm malfunctioning," she murmured. The machine hummed to life, streams of light connecting both their sensors. The data hologram bloomed above them, showing patterns of human bioelectricity mixing with Verelian energy waves. Ethan leaned closer, pointing to the readings. "See this? When our fields overlap, they form something new," he explained. "Something resonant." Her eyes followed the glowing threads intertwining in the projection. She felt her pulse, if it could be called that, quicken. "Resonant," she repeated softly, "like harmony." Ethan nodded. "Exactly like music," he said. Then, unexpectedly, a spark burst from the console. The energy field flared, Celira gasped, stumbling back. Ethan instinctively reached out, his hand catching her arm before she fell. The moment his skin touched her crystalline surface, the sensors spiked violently. The lights in the room dimmed, and for an instant, the entire laboratory filled with a radiant pink glow. Both froze, staring at each other, his hand still holding her arm, her glow pulsating like a heartbeat. The instruments beeped wildly, recording something unprecedented. "The readings," Ethan began, but his voice trailed off. She looked up at him, her breath, or whatever passed for it, uneven. "You're warm," she whispered. He slowly released her, stepping back. "I'm sorry, that was reflex," he said quickly. She shook her head. "No," she said softly, looking at her hand, still glowing faintly. "That was something else." The system automatically logged the event, labeling it unclassified response type, emotional resonance. Neither spoke for a long moment. The hum of machines filled the silence. Finally, Celira turned away, hiding her expression. "End the session," she said quietly, her voice trembling slightly. Later that evening, she returned to her private chamber and stood before her mirror, her skin still glowing faint pink no matter how she tried to suppress it. She placed her hand on her chest, whispering, "This is not logical," she told herself. "This is contamination," but the word felt wrong. It didn't feel like infection, it felt alive that night. She recorded another secret log, her voice barely audible. "Physical contact with the human triggered an unknown biological reaction. My glow increased by 43%, but it felt pleasant, safe, as if energy recognized energy." She paused. "His touch lingers, even when he's gone." On the other side of the palace, Ethan sat at his small desk reviewing the data. The graphs made no sense. Her energy pulse had mirrored his heartbeat perfectly. He leaned back, sighing. "What are you doing, Ethan?" he muttered to himself. "She's a royal alien princess, and you're just a scientist from Earth, still." When he closed his eyes, he could see her face, the glow in her cheeks, the way she whispered warm, as if discovering fire for the first time. The next day, rumors spread through the palace faster than light. The princess fainted during the experiment. Some said the Death Worlder touched her skin. Others whispered by evening. The imperial advisors gathered in the throne chamber, their voices sharp and cold. "Your Majesty," one elder said to the emperor, "the human must be monitored. This influence is dangerous." The Emperor's eyes darkened. "No one touches the royal line without consequence," he growled. But Selira remained silent through their warnings, sitting straight yet distant, her mind replaying the moment over and over. The touch, the glow, the warmth, everything her kind was never meant to feel. When the court adjourned, she returned to her balcony overlooking the city. The twin moons reflected in her eyes. She whispered into the night, "If this is corruption, then why does it feel like truth?" Far below in the research quarters, Ethan looked up at the same sky, unaware that their brief contact had already been logged into the Empire's high-priority files. Flagged as human emotional contagion, and somewhere deep within both their hearts, one human, one alien. A quiet connection began to hum across the stars, invisible yet unstoppable. The first spark of something neither Empire nor science could ever fully explain, something that would soon challenge the entire galaxy, one heartbeat at a time, forbidden curiosity. Days passed, yet the air within the royal palace never felt calm again. Since the incident, Princess Selira could feel eyes following her every move. Guards whispered, advisors lingered too long, and even the palace AI tracked her location more closely than before. The Emperor had said nothing directly, but his silence was heavier than anger. She tried to bury herself in royal duties, meetings, and rituals, but her thoughts drifted again and again to the human, Dr. Ethan Cole. She could still feel the faint echo of his warmth in her arm, a memory that refused to fade. Virelians were not supposed to feel, yet her energy core pulsed unpredictably every time she recalled that brief moment of touch. One night, she stood before her mirror, the glow in her skin shifting shades of blue and pink. "I am not sick," she whispered. "I am changing," and for the first time in her royal life, she didn't feel fear, she felt alive. That same evening, she sent a hidden transmission through encrypted channels. It reached Ethan's private terminal deep in the science wing. "Meet me in the Star Gardens at the third moon's rise." "Come alone?" Ethan hesitated. The Emperor's guards already treated him like a dangerous animal since the lab accident. But curiosity and concern outweighed caution. When the third moon rose, casting silver light through the glass domes, he walked into the royal gardens. The air was filled with luminous vines and drifting pollen that shimmered like stars. Selira was waiting by a tree of glowing petals, wearing a long crystal robe that reflected the light of the moons. "You came," she said softly. Her voice carried a tremor between relief and nervousness. "I shouldn't have," Ethan replied. "The Emperor will have me executed if he finds out." She stepped closer. "Then let us hope he does not." They stood in silence for a moment, the air humming with unspoken thoughts. "Why did you call me here?" Ethan asked. She looked at him, eyes bright like twin galaxies. "Because I cannot stop thinking about what you said," she whispered. "About connection, about love." She paused. "I have read every archive on human culture, but none of them explain why it feels like my heart changes when I see you." Ethan's breath caught. "Selira," he began, but she interrupted. "You said love makes humans strong." "That it is born from choice," she said, "and then perhaps this confusion I feel is my choice." She took his hand again, slow, deliberate, and this time, the glow didn't surge out of control. It pulsed softly between them, like two stars syncing their rhythm. Ethan's voice softened. "You shouldn't be doing this," he said. "Your empire." She shook her head. "My empire has no soul," she said bitterly. "We have knowledge, we have order, but not this." She looked at their joined hands. Not warmth. For a moment, the universe seemed smaller, quieter, just them and the starlight. She looked up at him. "Tell me, Ethan," she said softly, "how do humans show affection?" He hesitated, then smiled faintly. "Many ways," he said. "A smile, a touch, sometimes a kiss." Her glow flickered brighter. "Kiss?" she repeated. The translation drones hovered uncertainly. "A gesture," Ethan said quickly. "It's when two people—" He trailed off as she leaned closer, curious eyes wide. "Like this?" she asked, and before he could reply, she brushed her lips against his cheek. Every light in the garden flickered, her glow turned crimson. She gasped, stepping back. "It burns," she said, clutching her chest. Ethan moved forward in concern. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "No," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It burns, but it feels beautiful." Above them, the palace security drones whirred to life, detecting unauthorized movement. Ethan grabbed her hand. "We need to go," he said. "You'll be caught." She looked at him, smiling through her glow. Then we go together." They slipped through the garden tunnels, their footsteps silent on crystal paths. Alarms began to hum faintly in the distance, but neither looked back. Something much greater than fear was driving them. By dawn, the Emperor's Council had already discovered traces of the forbidden meeting. Security footage showed glowing energy trails. The advisors gathered in panic. "She has been compromised," one shouted. "The Death Worlder has infected her essence." "Eh." The Emperor rose from his throne, his eyes cold as the void. "Bring the human to me," he ordered, "and seal my daughter's chamber until I decide what must be done." Inside her sealed quarters, Celira stood by the window watching the rising sun. Her heart heavy yet defiant, she whispered to herself. "If understanding humanity is forbidden, then perhaps our laws deserve to be broken." And far below, escorted by guards and chains of light, Ethan Cole was taken from his lab, his calm face hiding one thought: that the alien princess who blushed like dawn was worth any risk. Even defying an empire, neither of them knew it yet. But their forbidden curiosity had already shaken the foundations of a 1,000-year-old civilization, and the galaxy had begun to whisper a new story, one where logic bowed before the power of a single human heartbeat. The scandal of the stars. The Imperial Hall was overflowing. Nobles, ministers, and scholars filled the tiers that spiraled up the golden chamber, the hum of their voices like a storm trapped in a glass dome. At the center stood Dr. Ethan Cole, bound in radiant energy cuffs, light pulsing around his wrists like molten chains. He looked calm, but inside, his heart pounded like thunder. Above him, on the throne carved from pure starlight, sat Emperor Varelian IX, eyes cold, voice sharp as a blade. "Human," the Emperor declared, his words echoing through the hall. "You have trespassed beyond your purpose. Your kind was invited here to share knowledge, not to corrupt our royal blood." Murmurs of approval rippled through the crowd. Some aliens hissed softly, others whispered, "Death Worlder." Like it was a curse, Ethan didn't speak. His gaze shifted instead toward the balcony, where behind a shimmering veil, Princess Celira stood, forced to watch in silence, her glow dim and trembling. Her advisors flanked her like guards, whispering poison into her ears. "He deceived you, Your Highness," they said. "He polluted your essence. He must be erased." The Emperor raised his hand. "The Council has found you guilty of emotional contamination," he said coldly. "And under Varelian law, such infection is to be purged." The hall filled with low roars of agreement. But before the decree could be sealed, a soft yet firm voice cut through the air. "Stop." Every head turned. Celira stepped forward, ignoring the guards that tried to hold her back, her glow brightening from dull blue to a defiant rose. "If emotion is infection," she said, her voice trembling but clear, "then perhaps what we call purity is just emptiness." Gasps echoed through the crowd. The Emperor rose to his feet. "Daughter," he began, but she raised a hand, silencing him. "You fear humanity because they feel," she continued, "because they love, because they choose to care. Even when it hurts." Her eyes moved to Ethan. "I have seen their strength, Father, and it is not in their weapons. It is in their hearts." Her words struck the hall like a pulse of light. Nobles stared in stunned silence, some offended, others shaken. The Emperor's jaw clenched. "You speak like one of them," he hissed. "Perhaps I am," she replied softly, "because for the first time, I feel alive." A loud metallic slam echoed. Ethan's cuffs tightened. Guards moved forward. "Enough of this madness," the Emperor roared. "Take her to the isolation chamber until the infection fades. And the human," his eyes burned like stars collapsing, "will be executed at dawn." The words hit the room like a physical blow. Celira gasped. "No," she cried, struggling against her guards, her glow flaring crimson. Ethan looked up, calm despite the chaos. "It's fine," he said softly, his voice reaching her through the din. "If this is the price for teaching you what love means, it's worth it." Her breath caught. Tears got shimmering like liquid light, welled in her eyes, something her species had never done before. The crowd fell silent as they saw it, emotion made visible. "You see?" she shouted through her tears. "Even now he feels compassion while you speak of purity." She turned to the nobles. "You call him dangerous, but he only ever showed kindness." The Emperor slammed his staff against the ground. Energy rippled across the hall, silencing all. "Guards," he commanded, "remove the Death Worlder." Two armored Varelians stepped forward, seizing Ethan by the arms. But before they could drag him away, Celira broke free. her energy flaring into a blinding light that forced everyone to shield their eyes. In that instant she ran to him, placing her hand over his, their energies merging once more. The glow surrounding them became a living storm. Colors the palace had never seen spiraled across the ceiling. "Your Highness, no," cried one of the guards, but it was too late. The resonance between them had already surged into the palace's main energy grid. Alarms wailed, systems overloaded, and holograms shattered into fragments of light. When the flare subsided, both stood in the center, breathing heavily, surrounded by stunned silence. Ethan looked at her, his voice quiet but firm. "You shouldn't have done that," she smiled faintly, tears still glistening. "I just did." The Emperor trembled with rage. But beneath the anger, even he looked shaken. His daughter's emotions had triggered a reaction beyond science or reason. "Lock them both away," he ordered finally. "I will decide their fate once the system stabilizes." As guards led Ethan away, Selira met his eyes one last time, her voice barely a whisper. "I will not let you die." And deep beneath the palace, as he was thrown into the cold confinement cell, Ethan smiled to himself, whispering into the dark, "I know you won't." Above him, the Empire trembled with rumors. The princess cried for a human. The Death Worlder corrupted the bloodline. The stars themselves bent to their emotions. But somewhere far beyond the reach of their laws, in the quiet between two hearts, a new kind of power was growing. Something even empires couldn't contain. Something as dangerous as it was beautiful. Something the galaxy would soon learn to fear. The union of emotion and will, of humanity and royalty, the scandal of the stars, the escape through the nebula. The palace slept beneath a dome of static silence. Yet in the deepest cell beneath the imperial spire, Dr. Ethan Cole did not sleep. Chains of light bound his wrists, and the air was cold with the hum of containment fields. He could feel his heartbeat echoing faintly against the metallic floor. The faint scent of ozone and ionized air lingered, the mark of alien technology older than humanity itself. Outside, the storm began, a rare cosmic phenomenon, the Varelian Nebula, swirling with charged particles and violet lightning. The Emperor's own astronomers had declared it an omen of purification. But to one defiant princess, it was a sign. Selira had not been seen in 2 days. The Emperor believed her will was breaking, but in truth, she was planning something her kind had never done. Rebellion. She stood before a hidden console in her private chamber. Her glow dimmed to avoid sensors. Her trembling hands moved with precision as she hacked through the palace's ancient firewalls. Every system she breached brought flashes of Ethan's face to her mind. The warmth in his eyes, the gentleness in his voice, the way he smiled even when threatened. Her father had called him dangerous, but Selira knew now. He was only dangerous to fear itself. When the final security lock disengaged, she whispered to herself, "For the first time, Father, I choose for me." She donned her infiltration armor, its surface bending light around her form, and moved silently through the corridors. The palace glowed under red warning lights as she reached the detention sector. 2 sentry drones hovered before the human cell, their eyes pulsing with crimson energy. Selira raised her hand and with a burst of concentrated will, released a pulse of radiant energy that disabled them instantly, their shells dropping like glass. The cell door slid open with a hiss. Ethan looked up, startled. "Princess?" he whispered. She stepped inside, her glow faint and urgent. "We have no time," she said, breaking his restraints with a flick of her wrist. "They will execute you at dawn." He stood slowly, eyes meeting hers. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly. "If they catch you," she shook her head. "Then we'll both be caught together." For a brief second, silence stretched between them, the kind that spoke louder than words. Then she grabbed his hand. "Follow me," she said. They ran through narrow maintenance tunnels, alarms beginning to echo through the halls. The Emperor's voice thundered across the comms. "Seal every gate." "My daughter has betrayed her crown." But Selira ignored it, her focus sharp, her steps light, her hand never letting go of his. They reached the hangar bay, where sleek royal shuttles waited under flickering lights. "We'll never make it," Ethan said, scanning the guards ahead. "Yes, we will," she replied, pulling a silver crest from around her neck. "The royal access insignia. This opens everything," she said, pressing it against the control pad. The bay doors opened to the cosmic chaos beyond, the swirling storm of the Varelian Nebula. As the shuttle lifted, beams of plasma tore through the air. The guards opened fire. "They're targeting the engines." Ethan shouted, gripping the controls. Then fly like a death worlder, she said fiercely. He smirked despite the danger, flipping the ship upside down as plasma bolts grazed the hull. Hold on, he shouted, diving into the storm. Lightning crackled around them, illuminating her glowing face, her hair drifting weightlessly. We'll die in here, she cried. Not today, he said, voice steady. The ship trembled violently as they entered the nebula. The storm's electromagnetic waves scrambled sensors. Behind them, Varelian cruisers lost tracking, their systems overloaded by the interference. They can't follow us, Ethan said between heavy breaths. Celera turned to him. You risked everything for me. He shook his head. No, you risked everything for us, she looked at him, her eyes shimmering like the lightning outside. You said once, she whispered, that humans create life through connection, through love. He nodded slightly. Yes. She leaned closer, her voice softer now. Then maybe this is what it means to be alive. The shuttle passed through a cloud of luminescent gas, the light reflecting on their faces for a moment. Everything was calm. The galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Then the Emperor's voice echoed faintly over the comms. You cannot escape the Empire, daughter. Emotion is weakness, and it will destroy you both. Celera looked out at the glowing storm and whispered, Then let it destroy everything that made us hollow. Ethan reached for her hand again. The glow between their palms pulsed like a living heartbeat. You're trembling, he said quietly. I'm feeling? She replied, her lips trembling into a smile. For the first time. And as the storm swallowed their ship, the nebula erupted in a wave of radiant energy, visible across half the Empire's sectors. Astronomers called it the Blush Nebula, a phenomenon never seen before. But those who looked closer, those who truly understood, whispered a legend, that somewhere inside that cosmic storm, an alien princess and a human scientist escaped not into exile, but into freedom, carrying within them something greater than science, greater than empires, something that no storm could ever erase. The birth of a new beginning, forged in love, courage, and the fire of two souls that dared to feel. The blush heard across the stars. The nebula stretched like an ocean of fire and light, clouds of pink and violet drifting endlessly. The small shuttle floated through silence, its hull scorched, its engines barely holding together, yet inside peace had finally settled. Dr. Ethan Cole leaned back against the co-pilot chair, his face lit by the soft radiance of the nebula. Across from him sat Princess Celera, no crown, no guards, no empire, just a being who had chosen to feel. Days turned into weeks, they drifted between stars, following fragments of human signal relays until they found a quiet world on the edge of nowhere. A forgotten moon circling a dim sun, they landed in a valley of silver grass and glowing blue trees. The air thin but breathable, the sky always painted with swirling colors of the nearby nebula. This place, Celera whispered as she stepped outside the ship. It feels alive. Her voice echoed softly across the field. Ethan smiled. Maybe because no one has told it not to be. She looked at him, smiling back. Like us, she said. They built a small home from the shuttle wreckage, a fusion of human steel and Varelian crystal. By day, Ethan repaired broken systems. By night, Celera studied the stars, recording the frequencies of their light. Together they grew food from Varelian seed pods and earth crops, and sometimes when the nebula storms rolled across the horizon, they would sit under the glowing trees, listening to the electric hum of the cosmos. One evening, as the twin moons rose above the valley, Celera turned to him and asked softly, Do you ever miss your world? Ethan stared at the horizon for a moment. Every day, he said, but when I look at you, I think maybe I brought a piece of it with me. Her glow warmed, spreading across her face. Your words, she murmured. They make my heart change color. He laughed quietly. That's the point. Later that night, while adjusting the holographic recorder, Ethan found her sitting by the window, staring at the nebula, her hands folded in thought. What are you thinking? He asked. She didn't turn to face him. The council will come, she said quietly. They will send fleets, they will call me traitor. They will erase me from history. She looked at him then, her eyes shimmering like molten glass. But I will not regret this. He walked closer, his hand brushing hers. They'll come, he said. But they won't understand, she smiled faintly. They never did. Silence hung between them. A silence filled with everything unspoken. Love, defiance, hope, and fear outside. Lightning shimmered through the nebula like a heartbeat. She stood walking toward him, her glow shifting to a deeper pink. "Ethan," she whispered, "that first day, when I asked how humans reproduce, you said it begins with connection." He nodded slowly. "Yes." "Then what comes after?" she asked, her voice trembling. He smiled softly, stepping close enough to feel her warmth. "After connection," he said, "comes trust." She looked into his eyes, searching, understanding. Her glow brightened until the whole room filled with soft light. "Then teach me," she said simply. He reached out, his fingers brushing her cheek. "No," he said gently. "We'll learn together." And when their foreheads touched, their energy fields merged completely for the first time. The room flared with radiant color, human warmth and alien energy weaving into a new frequency that neither species had ever recorded. Across the cosmos, scanners flickered, picking up the anomaly deep within the Varelian Empire. Alarms triggered in ancient satellites. The Emperor stood before his advisors, staring at the readings. "What is this?" he demanded. An elder scientist whispered, "It's coming from the nebula, my lord. A new resonance pattern unlike anything in our databases." The Emperor's gaze hardened. "Describe it." The elder hesitated. It matches both human and Varelian energy signatures. Perfectly synchronized." The Emperor's silence stretched long and heavy. "Impossible," he muttered. Yet the data was clear. The two lifeforms had created harmony, not contamination. Weeks later, stories began to spread through the outer colonies. Stories of a light seen across the void, a flare that pulsed like a heartbeat. Some said it was a star being born. Others whispered it was the blush heard across the stars. A symbol of something greater than war or empire. A reminder that emotion could reshape the universe itself. On their quiet moon, Sailora stood with Ethan on a cliff, the nebula swirling above them like a living ocean. "Do you think they'll ever understand?" she asked. He smiled softly. "Maybe one day." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "And if they don't, then we'll keep showing them," he said. In the distance, the nebula shimmered one last time, casting a soft pink light over the valley, and for that single moment, it felt as if the universe itself blushed, not from shame, but from wonder. And so the legend spread, not of conquest, not of rebellion, but of two hearts, one human, one alien, who proved that love was not a weakness to be purged, but a force strong enough to make even the stars themselves stop and listen. The file in the Royal Archives was sealed forever under one name, Project Human. Love, yet across the galaxy. The story lived on. The tale of the princess who learned to blush, and the human who taught the stars to feel.